What's good, y'all? Welcome back to a brand new video. And today, we're switching it back. We're going back to something I used to love doing, and I still love doing. I just haven't produced a lot of it recently. And that's just talking about basketball, talking about hoops. We're following up on Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. And essentially, Miami is starting to creep a little bit behind in this series, allowing the Boston Celtics to force a Game 6, which is huge. And teams that are leading 3-0 in NBA history, they're 0-150 all-time. Now, I think for the past few days or so, the narrative all across the media is that, Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat have just looked amazing, and there's no way that the Boston Celtics come back. Now, you still get the people that are trolls and ultimately say Boston's going to be the first team. They're going to do history and complete this comeback, but at the time, you just see all Nuggets 4-0, Heat 4-0. You're preparing for the Heat to be in the finals. Everyone's expectations are the Heat, they might lose a game, but I'm not worried. Until they win 2, then you got to take a little bit of accountability, a little bit of worrisome. And tonight, the Boston Celtics did it. Now, how did that essentially happen? I watched all 48 minutes of this game. I watched all 44 of these minutes. I turned off the last 4 minutes once they called the flag, once they waved the white flag, and I turned that game off just to hop on here with y'all. Something that really impressed me tonight with the Boston Celtics is that Jason Tatum in elimination games averages 27 points per game, which is the highest mark of any Boston Celtic of all time, which is incredible when you really think about it, because there's been insane players in Celtics uniforms and in the playoffs, and Jason Tatum averaging the highest mark in elimination games is pretty incredible. And I think it's very apparent that he does not want to go home quite yet. One of the big factors for the Miami Heat into this game was that Gabe Vincent did not play. And that's huge when it comes to Miami's guard play. We saw Victor Oladipo not playing in these finals or in these NBA playoffs. Tyler Hero obviously got injured in that Milwaukee series. And just having a lot of depth at that guard position down the drain. No Gabe Vincent tonight. We're hoping he can be back for Game 6, because that's going to be a hell of a game on Saturday. And I'm hoping I'm going to be able to turn into that game. But the Miami Heat have been super, super great while Gabe Vincent is playing. They're 18-5 all-time in the playoffs while Vincent is playing. But damn, Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics, they were too much for the Miami Heat tonight. Really just from the get-go. Once they had that first initial 12-0 run in that first quarter, Jason Tatum had a blow-by dunk. That really just got the TD Garden electrified, and they just didn't turn back since that moment. And the tail of the game really was the turnover battle, and it was atrocious. 10 first-half turnovers, 6 in the first, 10 points off of turnovers in that first quarter. Marcus Smart had 6 steals tonight. And the Boston Celtics were the first team in NBA history where their starting 5 had 12 steals as well as 12 three-pointers, which is an incredible stat when you think about it, but I also think that is one of those corny ESPN-like stats that they post just to get a little bit of coverage out there. But nonetheless, very, very impressive stat, not gonna lie. It was an all-around effort, in my opinion, for not only the starting unit, but the bench of the Boston Celtics. I mean, Derek White, I think, was the X factor tonight. He came in this game. He shot 6 for 8 from downtown, 75% in an elimination game is incredible from a guy who really fluctuates between the starting lineup and the bench. And he was just incredible for tonight. And I think he was really that X factor for the Boston Celtics. Yes, a lot of other players tonight stepped up really big for that Boston team. Joe Mazzulla really had some good rotations tonight, and he brought it on the defensive side of things. The transition buckets, the transition takeaways that they had tonight was unreal. And those steals and those blocks and just getting out transition is something that championship caliber teams do, and that you have to do that if you want to succeed in the NBA playoffs. And Boston just did that pretty much for all 48 minutes of tonight. So props to the Miami Heat, or props to the Boston Celtics for forcing the Miami Heat some turnovers. And it was an atrocious one for Kyle Lowry and Bam Adebayo, to say the least. That first half by Bam Adebayo, 4 first-quarter turnovers. Kyle Lowry had 4 turnovers in the first half. Bam Adebayo shot 33% from the field in that first half. And essentially, they just were down so much at that point where that third quarter run that he had, while it was impressive, while he was looking a little bit more dominant, you can't come back from that. And that's a struggle that we've seen in centers in this NBA season, especially in Bam Adebayo, where he can look so great and so aggressive some nights, and then there's other nights where he just doesn't bring it. And tonight, he couldn't really get those shots up. Now, we did see some possessions where he just fumbled the ball, kicked it off his foot, or if he made a shot, there were times where there was 3 seconds on the clock and he just had to chuck something up in the deep mid-range, and he somehow banked it in. I remember that I believe it was a shot at the end of the second half where there was like 2 seconds left. Al Horford was on him, and he just chucked it off one leg, banked it in. Now, fortunately for him, it went in. But you cannot have shots like that in an elimination game in the Eastern Conference Finals. You have a chance to be the 8th seed in the playoffs, make history, yet you're allowing Boston to potentially make history, and they have a damn tough time just closing this series out. I don't get it. Now, fortunately for them, they have 4 chances to finish this series. Dropped game 4, dropped game 5. Now, I think it's all going to come down to this game 6. If you're not able to close it out at, FTX Arena in Miami, it's going to be tough to come back to Boston after losing 3 straight. That Miami crowd is going to give them benefits for game 6, but I think Boston is going to have that advantage if they can win all 3 straight. So it's going to be interesting. We'll break that down in a minute or so. Another interesting stat is that Miami ended up having their lowest first quarter in points this entire playoff run, which is terrible. I mean, you cannot get out to slow starts on the road, and you have to have your role players thrive. And that is something that happened today for the Miami Heat. The starting lineup for Miami, they didn't really bring it. Jimmy Butler was solid, but besides that, it was really the role of the bench. I think the MVP of this playoff series so far has been Caleb Martin. He's been incredible. He's one of the only 4 players all time to average 18.5 or more points in an Eastern Conference Finals, off the bench, that is. And he's been incredible. Just being able to attack the rim, hit those timely shots, and just take a little bit of pressure off Jimmy Butler. And he's just been the X factor. You know, he gets out in transition, he sets his feet on defense, and he just does those little things for the Miami Heat. And what they were doing in that second half and in that second quarter, they came out into that 2-3 zone. And initially, I thought it was going to work. The Boston Celtics missed their first 2 threes. And then I'm like, okay, this could work. They're only down 11. If they can continue to just cough up, not even just turnovers, but bad possessions for the Boston Celtics, they can slowly ease their way back into this game. And then Jaylen Brown hit a 3 from the left wing. And then Al Horford hit one from the right corner. And then I'm like, yeah, this zone isn't working out for them. And then eventually they switched almost into a box and one, where they just had one guy in Jimmy Butler playing out at the top of the key, and then the other wings would just collapse and almost triple team guys. And Derek White was still hitting those 3-point shots over them. And that zone has been amazing for them this series. They got out to the 3-0 lead because of that zone, but Boston just started to attack the perimeter, and their defense was not able to rotate quick enough. And essentially that was the biggest reason why the Miami Heat lost this game. Just they were not quick enough on defense. Credit the Boston Celtics for hitting their big shots. Fortunately for the Heat, Caleb Martin's knee is healthy. We saw him get hurt about midway through that second quarter, grabbing that knee, but he came back, and I prop him, because it's easy to go down, just not return to that game. But he got right back up, and then in that third quarter, there was a transition play where Marcus Smart, he had an open lane, and Caleb Martin just came out of nowhere and prevented the easy 2. And I'm glad that, the NBA did it and the referees didn't go look at that, because I think we're in an era nowadays where if someone gets hit hard on a fast break, no matter what the play is, they go and review it. So I'm glad the referees didn't go and take a look at that play, because they easily could have tried to call that a flagrant foul. But it's just a hard play, 2 guys just wanting to get either a bucket or a stop. But hey, make them earn it. And I think Marcus Smart made both of them, but regardless, I'm glad to see that Caleb Martin was giving them that hustle. 2 other guys off that Miami Heat bench that were really giving it their all tonight. The first guy was Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson has been really impressive this series to me. After being a guy who hasn't gotten a lot of burn, these playoff runs, he's been thriving in the role that Spo has been given him. He's been confident. He's actually driving and blowing by guys like Jason Tatum, which is impressive to me, because as a guy of his caliber who's just been known as a sharpshooter, he's been shooting the lights off the ball, as well as just driving in the rim and finishing well. Funny story about Duncan Robinson. I go to school at Temple, and on Broad Street, which is like one of the biggest streets in the city of Philadelphia, right outside the Leah Core Center, where that day the Miami Heat were in town to play Philly, I was just walking outside, and I literally saw Duncan Robinson just chilling on the street. And I'm like, yo, what's up, Duncan Robinson? What's going on, my boy? So, that was a very cool interaction. But nonetheless, Duncan Robinson has been phenomenal these playoffs, and he was one of the guys to really have an impact tonight. And I think he had his biggest impact tonight. Unfortunately, the guys around him just couldn't get it done. Another guy, Haywood Highsmith. He had an incredible game tonight. And without a doubt, I think Spo is going to find some sort of minutes for him next game. Whether or not Gabe Vincent is going to be playing, I do think Haywood Highsmith deserves some minutes. Coming out of West Virginia, he's been a guy this season where he'll come in during garbage time or when there's shorter rotations, and he'll play his ass off, and he does a really good job. He gives it his all. He gives 150%. He goes after the loose balls. He can finish inside. He can shoot the three pretty well when he's open. He's not able to necessarily create his own shot off the dribble that well. Nonetheless, Haywood Highsmith has been incredible. I don't know exactly what he ended with, but he had at least 12 points when I was watching that game, and they were impactful 12 points. And that bench kept him in the game for a little bit in that first half. Boston just looked really good. Jaylen Brown got off to a hot start. Jason Tatum got off to a hot start, and that's what you need. You can get out to these runs, force Miami to come back. They have been the best team in these playoffs and probably all season when it comes to making these comeback efforts. We've seen it this playoffs, but tonight I think it was just too much for Boston to handle. They had that time in the third quarter where they were exchanging buckets, but they would get it down just a little bit. But Boston would just come back and hit a big three, and that crowd would get into it, and then those little 5-0 runs are what kill you. You can't have your own 7-1 run for the Miami Heat while allowing them to just chip their way ahead and ahead and ahead, because eventually you're not going to come down from 25 in the playoffs. It's just not possible, especially on the road when your stars just aren't playing that well. Bam Adebayo, another guy, Bam Adebayo, in that first half, he struggled and he disappointed me a lot. I think he needs to step up a tremendous amount because Robert Williams has not been the Robert Williams that we've seen in the past, and you need to attack that. You need to attack Robert Williams in that defensive paint. I'm talking to you, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. We know Caleb Martin and Duncan Robinson have been doing that. You need to attack Robert Williams, because I don't think he's been that great of a defensive presence inside. A lot of the turnovers that Bam Adebayo had today were Grant Williams sending help, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown sending help inside and coughing the ball up. And half of those were just careless turnovers by Bam Adebayo. More careless turnovers came out off of Kyle Lowry. There was one possession where he just had a pound dribble and lost the ball, and that led to a transition steal. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that was the play where Caleb Martin came and fouled Marcus Smart on the opposite way. And then we went to commercial break, yada, yada, yada. But either way, once I saw Jason Tatum hit that turnaround shot from the right, the right wing, the right elbow, right on the baseline, I knew that this game was wraps. They had their largest lead of the series, and I'm like, yeah, I think this is great. But moving forward, my takeaways from this game are that you just got to hit your shots, man. At the end of the day, as stupid as it sounds, whoever scores more points wins the game. But when you're able to shoot the way that the Boston Celtics did tonight from deep, it's going to be hard to lose a big game of basketball. You force turnovers, you get second chance opportunities, and you got to rebound the ball. You just have to do little things. You have to rebound the ball. You have to hustle for it, because those hustle points will win you games. And if you can have guys on this team who just go out and hustle, hit their shots like the Miami Heat are known to do and have been doing all playoff run, they just haven't done it the past two games. However, I do think that they still have 2 more games to go. They can win one, lose the other, doesn't matter. They can win it on Saturday. They have 4 chances to close this series out. It's still going to be very difficult for Boston to come back and win 4 straight. And I don't really see a world where Miami does lose 4 straight, because you got guys like Jimmy Butler, who I do think is going to be due to have another big game coming up. And my keys for Saturday's game are, if you're the Miami Heat, you need to have your starters step up, because I do think that those role players are going to step up for you. They're going to play impactful. Duncan Robinson's going to hit his 2 or 3 threes. Max Strus, who had a stinker of a game tonight, I think he's going to get his timely buckets. He'll give you your 10. If Gabe Vincent plays, he'll give you your 10. Kale Mar might get you your 10 or 15. You need to have guys like Kyle Lowry dishing the rock. Adebayo needs to be aggressive. He needs to have his cumulative 3 stocks. You need to have that pressure on the rim. Force guys like Marcus Smart to shoot the ball. Wow, he had an incredible game from downtown tonight. You live with Marcus Smart shooting the ball as opposed to having the ball in Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown's hands. And if you're Boston, you just need to keep doing what you're doing tonight. Dive for those loose balls. Get those second chance opportunities, because essentially Eric Spoelstra and Miami Heat just gave it to them. So moving forward, I think Game 6 is going to be an incredible game. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And my predictions from right now, I still want to say I think the Heat are going to close out the series and advance to the NBA Finals on Saturday. But it's going to be a hell of a game. I'm not a guy to make predictions all that time. Or if I do make predictions, I kind of just say what I think. And if I'm right, I'm right. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this sort of little layout, talking for 15 minutes, chopping it up, whatever it may be, let me know down in the comments if you want to see some more things like this. I have a ton of fun recording these sort of videos, taking notes during the game, making little statistics here and there. And it's something I really love doing. So whether you guys are new or not, subscribe down below, like the video, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video, and yeah, I'll see you guys all next time. Peace.